What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, children of the forest of all ages, Joker back again, once again. And of course, spoilers for Season 8, Episode 4. Leave now, or forever hold your peace. So, Season 8, Episode 4 continues the trend of characters, both heroes and villains, losing not because they were outsmarted, because they were written in a way that their actions could not be seen as anything other than blatant incompetence of the highest magnitude. And I think it's an important distinction. Isn't it better to watch a hero or a villain fail because their opponent was just better than them, not because the hero or the villain was outright stupid?
While Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her, and they're just waiting for her to come back.
And the Golden Company has arrived in King's Landing, courtesy of the Greyjoy fleet. The balance has grown distressingly even.
In early Game of Thrones, before the series had lost the plot, literally speaking, and it had source material to work from, we see main characters lose, but they're well set up losses. Losses due to mistakes that the character makes and intrinsic character flaws that we, the viewer, might not view as flaws, like honor, love, mercy. Look at Ned and Robb Stark. I plan on doing a more in-depth video about the subversion of their storylines, but the long and short of it is, Ned Stark wasn't killed because he positioned his troops wrong, or because he overreached, or because he had no clue what he was doing tactically speaking, or because the plot decreed it for dramatic effect, so they decided to write him as incompetent. No, there is a long line of noble and honorable choices, like showing mercy to Cersei and her children, that ultimately cost Ned Stark his life.
When the king returns from his hunt, I'll tell him the truth. You must be gone by then. You and your children. I will not have their blood on my hands.
The same thing goes for Robb Stark. He married Jane Westerling to Lisa in the show because he slept with her, and it was the honorable thing to do. And he loved her. This, however, spurned House Frey, which we're told multiple times is not a good idea. But then he also executes Rickard Karstark, even after everybody warns him how much of a bad idea it would be.
Spare his life. Keep him as a hostage.
A hostage? Tell the Karstarks that as long as they remain loyal, he will not be harmed.
But Robb's not entirely wrong either.
I'm not fighting for justice if I don't serve justice to murderers in my ranks, no matter how highborn. He has to die.
And so, Robb executes him. And, like everybody said, he lost the Karstarks. This isn't a simple case of, oh, silly me, I forgot the Iron Fleet existed, and this is a hard moral question about doing what's right, doing what's just. Yes, he lost men after he killed the head of the Karstarks, but at the same time, he couldn't let this go unpunished, basically placing Robb in a no-win situation. Kill him, and you lose the Karstarks. Don't kill him, and, well, maybe the King of the North isn't the leader the North needs. His mistakes are at least mistakes that the audience are inclined to agree with. And not stupidity for stupidity's sake, just so you can shock the audience. When Ned Stark was executed at the end of Game of Thrones, there was a whole season built up to it. There was a whole book built up to it. The death of Robb at the Red Wedding, it was shocking, but all the warning signs were there. Shock, for shock's sake, is not good writing. And that's what the second half of Episode 4 is. Shock for shock's sake. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Let's start with what I liked, because although this episode was horrifically moronic, there was things I enjoyed. The funeral, Jon's speech, and the after party, the dinner. These were all really human moments that invoked the highlights of the human story that Episode 1 and 2 were telling. People saying goodbye. And people starting to grieve for the ones they lost. Sansa's goodbye to Theon, for example, was really well done. The two of them had a bond. This bond that was created through this horrific trauma that they both experienced. Then we get to the after-party dinner scene, and I'm super conflicted on it. Tyrion's Never Have I Ever game was hilarious. Until it wasn't. You have these two brothers that have been through a lot together, you have Brienne, who's been through a lot with Jaime, and you have Podrick, who's just kind of been there with all of them. And it's a really great moment. Until it goes full cringe.
You're drinking wine, but you prefer ale.
No!
You're a virgin.
Awkward. First, she's Brienne, the Maiden of Tarth. Everybody knows she's a virgin. Second, This scene is only here just as a pretext to get Jaime and Brienne to have sex, which, sure, I guess it likely ensures that Jaime will have a child once he goes off to King's Landing and probably dies, but I just found this whole relationship forced. Jaime and Brienne are like two buddy cops in a buddy cop movie, and this romance diminishes the importance in my mind of Jaime knighting her. She wanted to be a knight. She wanted to prove that she was as good as any man. But now, I guess she just wants dick, which, okay, I'm not opposed to this relationship per se, but the way that it was presented is utterly cringeworthy. As for the rest of the dinner scene, on my first viewing, I didn't actually mind it. I mean, look at my boy Gendry. Everything is going right for him. He got laid, now he's got a lordship, and not just any lordship, like a high lordship, and he's no longer a bastard. And you know what? He deserves it, because Gendry is apparently the only master smith in all of the North, and they wouldn't have had weapons without Gendry. So, yeah, he deserved the promotion. He worked really, really hard. However, on a second viewing, there's just a couple of plot important things going on here that I don't think Dany realizes what she's actually doing.
Yes, Your Grace.
You're Robert Baratheon's son. You are aware he took my family's throne and tried to have me murdered.
I didn't even know he was my father until after he was dead.
Yes. He's dead. His brothers are too. So who's Lord of Storm's End now?
I don't know, Your Grace.
Does anyone?
So there's a maester, there's Bran, you have Davos, you have Tyrion, you have Jaime, you have Brienne of Tarth. Her and Davos are actually subjects of the Stormlands. You have Bronn Young Royce and half a dozen other military leaders, and nobody knows who's in charge of the Stormlands. Now, mind you, who's in charge of the Stormlands is actually a book plot point. When Stannis leaves Storm's End, he appoints Sir Gilbert Faring as Castellan of Storm's End. And like I said, Storm's End being held by someone is actually a huge plot point, because in A Dance of Dragons, because Storm's End has never fallen, a character by the name of Aegon Targaryen, not this one, and his hand, Jon Connington, plan to use the Golden Company to take Storm's End. The hope is, if they can take Storm's End, that it'll show the other lords of Westeros that they are a legitimate contender for the Iron Throne, and they want to win these other lords to their cause.
That can't be, I'm a bastard.
No. You are Lord Gendry Baratheon of Storm's End, the lawful son of Robert Baratheon, because that is what I have made you.
So this could actually come back to bite her in the ass. What does it matter if Gendry's a bastard? For example, Jon Snow was believed to be a bastard, and he was made a king, and Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. On top of that, it's believed that Orys Baratheon, the founder of House Baratheon, was Aegon the Conqueror's half-brother, a Targaryen bastard. Now, you may be wondering why that's important. Well, later on we have this scene.
I told you I don't want it.
It doesn't matter what you want. You didn't want to be king in the North. What happens when they demand you press your claim and take what is mine?
So, by legitimizing Gendry, she's actually just put another claimant to the throne out there. And as she said in her own words, it doesn't matter what Gendry wants, other people will push his claim to the throne. People who prefer Baratheon rule over Targaryen rule.
You gave up your crown to save your people. Would she do the same?
What happens when they demand you press your claim and take what is mine?
Take what's yours, except it's not yours.
Daenerys is our queen. She shouldn't be. That's treason. It's the truth.
By all the laws of succession that Dany has used to justify her invasion of Westeros, by her own logic, the Iron Throne is not hers, it's Jon's. But let's go ahead and talk more about this scene, because I utterly fucking hated this scene.
I owe them the truth.
Even if the truth destroys us.
It won't.
It will. I've never begged for anything. But I'm begging you. Don't do this. Please.
So Dany comes in pouting like the new girlfriend over for the holidays, here to meet the family. and she's made the choice to sit on the outside and be the outsider.
I saw them gathered around you. I saw the way they looked at you. I know that look. So many people have looked at me that way, but never here.
I'm the last hope of a dynasty, Mormont. The greatest dynasty this world has ever seen on my shoulders since I was 5 years old. And no one has ever given me what they gave to her in that tent. Never. Not a piece of it. How can I carry what I need to carry without it? Who can rule without wealth or fear or love?
Dany is mad because people are looking at Jon the way that people in Essos used to look at her. I don't actually agree with that. I think they're looking at Jon as a friend and as an equal. I think in Essos, people were terrified of her, or people looked at her with reverence like a goddess. Not a friend. Not a leader. And Dany seems to forget the history around her family and what she's doing. She's a foreign invader with a foreign army. Last time the Starks dealt with the Targaryens, it ended in Ned's father and brother's death. Everyone, including Dany, believes that Rhaegar, her brother, kidnapped and did horrible things to Lyanna Stark.
My brother Rhaegar. Everyone told me he was decent and kind. He liked to sing. Gave money to poor children. And he raped her.
Dany is the daughter of the Mad King, who killed 2 Stark lords, and the sister of a kidnapper and rapist. On top of that, her hand is Tyrion, a Lannister, who the North has spent years fighting for killing Ned. The Lannisters were also the minds behind the Red Wedding, and they raised House Bolton to be the Wardens of the North, and the North suffered under House Bolton. To quote the books, when there was a Stark in Winterfell, a maiden girl could walk the King's Road in her name-day gown and go unmolested. And travelers could find fire, bread, and salt at many inn and holdfast. But the nights are colder now, and doors are closed. There are squids in the Wolfwood, and flayed men ride the King's Road, asking after strangers. The Targaryens brutalized the North. The Lannisters brutalized the North. And like the saying goes, the North remembers. And then there's also this.
You told me you liked this man.
I do.
In the time since he's met me, he's refused to call me queen, he's refused to bow, and now he's calling me a child.
Any man who must say, I am the king, is no true king.
So if we go back to the girlfriend analogy for a moment, here's what Jon told Stannis will win the mountain clans over. Quote, "It's no good sending messages. Your grace will need to go to them yourself. Eat their bread and their salt. Drink their ale. Listen to their pipers. Praise the beauty of their daughters and the courage of their sons. And you'll have your swords." And in the show, we get this exchange between Jon and Stannis about the North.
Northerners can be a bit like the free folk. Loyal to their own.
I know. My brother Robert went on often and loudly about how difficult it was to control them. Even with your father's help.
Dany is treated like an outsider because she chooses to act like an outsider. Had Dany chosen to stand up, walk 3 feet, and engage with the people celebrating, drink with them, eat with them, get to know them, have fun, talk, and engage with them, exactly how Ned Stark taught both Jon and Robb to act, then maybe she wouldn't feel like an outsider. In fact, this is what Barristan tells Dany Rhaegar did.
I was thinking about all the times your brother made me go with him down from the Red Keep into the streets of King's Landing.
Why?
We liked to walk among the people. We liked to sing to them.
He sang to them.
Yes. Rhaegar would pick a spot on the Hook or the Street of Seeds, and then he'd sing, just like all the other minstrels.
And what did you do?
I made sure no one killed him. And I collected the money. Well, he'd like to see how much he could make.
He was good.
He was very good. Viserys never told you.
He told me Rhaegar was good at killing people.
Rhaegar never liked killing. He loved singing.
And perhaps if she took this approach, she wouldn't feel like an outsider. Yes, she helped them save the world from ice zombies, but she didn't do that out of the kindness of her own heart. She did it because she didn't want to rule an icy graveyard. That's not altruism. That's fighting not to die. She then tells Jon that she wishes it could be like it was. And here we see her try to take advantage of Jon, try to manipulate him. She uses sex, sexuality, and Jon's love for her on top of his confusion and his identity crisis to try to manipulate him to get what she wants. And honestly, I don't think Dany is a bad character. I think the writers are just bad. The writers are trying to say, hey, look at Dany. She's unhinged. She's giving Jon ultimatums. It's be Aegon or be Jon Snow. But you can't be both. Tell no one, and I'll let you fuck me. Things will go back to normal. I'll love you. I won't unleash hell on the North. Tell people, and, well, I warned you. I warned you what would happen. I told you how there can be peace. And again, it's ridiculous. Because at the beginning of the season, the two were sleeping together. They're apparently in love with each other. So the deed is done. And Tyrion knows that they were sleeping together. So what's the problem here? Varys supposes that Jon will be against marrying Dany because she's his aunt. Except, you don't marry for love in a feudalistic society. You marry for peace, or to consolidate land and finances and power, to build a coalition. It really doesn't matter what Jon wants, as long as marrying Dany ensures peace. But this scene isn't here to show us Jon and Dany working together and getting together and building a bright future for the Seven Kingdoms. It's here to show us the ultimatum.
You are my queen. I don't know what else I can say.
You can say nothing to anyone ever.
We can live together.
We can. I've just told you how.
These are the terms of Dany's peace. And of course, this is going to put Dany and Jon in the North at odds with each other. And instead of doing the smart thing, like getting married, Dany will go full Mad Queen. In fact, I can see it now. Remember the House of the Undying vision? So Dany's standing there before the Iron Throne. The ceiling is burnt, implying fire from the sky. Snow is covering everything, implying winter has come. She reaches out to take the throne, but she doesn't touch it. She hears something. And then she goes and sees her dead husband, an unborn child. Yeah, I'm calling it now. Dany goes full Mad Queen. Jon has to kill her, just as she's crossing the finish line to get everything she's ever dreamed of and ever wanted. Which would be a really, really stupid way to end the series. That's actually not a horrible way for Dany to die, if she ends up dying, but to end the series like that? Really? If that's what you were planning to do from the start, have Dany take King's Landing and go full Mad Queen before you kill the Night King. Jon kills Dany, forges Lightbringer. You then have a connection to the Nissa Nissa part of the Azor Ahai, the Prince That Was Promised prophecy. A bittersweet ending for Dany. This woman who Jon loved. This woman who did amazing things. She hatched dragons. She freed people. She could have been a good ruler. But then she snapped. She lost too much. She went too far. And she killed tens of thousands of innocent people, burning down King's Landing. All for what? A pointy chair? But Dany losing it? Snapping like that? It should be built up, if that's the way the show wants to go with it. But the show hasn't earned the Mad Queen ending if that's what's going to happen. The show simply hasn't set up for that enough. There's not been enough foreshadowing. Maybe there's enough foreshadowing in the books, and maybe George R.R. Martin did tell them that, hey, Dany goes full Mad Queen. It's a tragedy. But George has 2 books to set that up. The show has 2 episodes, if that. In the show, everybody keeps telling us that Dany's crazy for wanting to engage in traditional warfare. No one thought Aegon the Conqueror was crazy when he told Black Heron that when the sun sets, his entire line would end. And then, what did Aegon do? He burnt down Harrenhal, including every man, woman, and child. Innocent people that were just there serving. People just doing their job. People that had no control over what their lord was doing. No one batted an eye when Aegon did it. No one batted an eye when Aegon killed 4,000 people in the Field of Fire. Nobody batted an eye when Aegon spent years and years burning Dorne after Rhaenys' death. In fact, when he wanted to make peace with Dorne, people were like, whoa, what? Tywin sacked King's Landing and nobody thought that was weird. Robb would have likely done the same, and I don't think that this is a sexist thing. I think this is because they wrote this whole thing about Dany wanting to break the wheel. And now the showrunners are so married to it that Dany can't make logical, tactical decisions. Because, oh no, innocent people may die. It's war. Innocent people die. Unfortunately, that's how it works. Best and only thing you can do is mitigate those losses. To quote Machiavelli, there's no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others, which is exactly what happens to Dany. Dany keeps postponing. She doesn't go in and just burn down the Red Keep. And she's lost dragons. She's lost large portions of her army. She's lost the advantage. To quote Machiavelli again, severity should be dealt out all at once, so that their suddenness may give less offense. Had Dany just gone to King's Landing when she first arrived, had she tried to do as little damage as possible, mitigate the collateral damage as much as possible, she would have won the war before there was a war. And none of this would be an issue. But no, every time she listens to other people about how she should proceed, instead of just taking King's Landing, she loses a part of her army. She loses her fleet, she loses soldiers, she loses dragons. All of this weakening her position and strengthening her enemies. Dany isn't mad like her father. She's rightfully frustrated. But all sympathy for that goes out the window when the show writers write scenes like this.
You are my queen. I don't know what else I can say.
You can say nothing to anyone ever.
We can live together.
We can. I've just told you how.
And it's frustrating as a viewer and as a fan of A Song of Ice and Fire because scenes like this are a complete and utter character assassination of Dany as a character. But if you thought Dany had terrible chances of making it out alive, Jon, he's not looking too great either.
I don't want Jon to go down there. The men in my family don't do well in the capital.
No. But as your brother once told me, he's not a Stark.
Tormund, he tells Jon that he belongs beyond the wall, in the true north. Jon sends Ghost with Tormund, because Jon belongs in the true north, beyond the wall. For those of you who do not know, Jon, like Bran, although not explored too much in the show, has the ability to skin change into Ghost. It's something he fights in the books. And it's something that all Stark children can do. In fact, Jon sending Ghost away doesn't really make much sense, as the bond between a warg and their animal is like a bond between you and your arm. The consciousness of the two blend. And when a warg dies, he lives a second life in his animal. Another bit of foreshadowing is the death of Rhaegal, which Grey Worm is partially responsible for. I mean, watch this exchange.
So, if all are in agreement, Jon and Sir Davos will ride down the King's Road with the northern troops and the bulk of the remaining Dothraki and Unsullied. A smaller group of us will ride to White Harbor and sail from there to Dragonstone with our queen and her dragons accompanying us from above.
Did you see it? Jon was going to take Rhaegal with him down the King's Road, but Grey Worm came along and goes, yeah, but no. So in the lore, dragons only bond to one rider at a time. And like with Ghost, it's a very spiritual thing. Now, dragons are more strong-willed than wolves, so they don't always listen because it's more of a partnership, but dragons who are already bonded to somebody will not accept another rider, making Rhaegal, for all intents and purposes, Jon's dragon. And Rhaegal not being with Jon ends like this. So things really aren't looking good for Jon. Also, why split up the army? How does that make sense? If Dany's going to rule a kingdom, shouldn't the people see her? Shouldn't she march from Winterfell down to King's Landing with her army so that people can see her, so that she can interact with all the people she's going to be passing by, so they know this queen, so she's not just some invader queen with dragons and an army from a foreign land? Maybe, just maybe, she should get to know her subjects. Missandei wasn't terribly wrong.
When the people find out what we have done for them, that we saved them.
Missandei's not wrong, and if you go from Winterfell down to King's Landing, taking King's Road, and you stop at places and you interact with the people, well, then they're more inclined to believe your propaganda over Cersei's propaganda. You have Jon Snow, Ned Stark's bastard for all intents and purposes, as far as most people know, at your side. One of the most honorable people in the Seven Kingdoms. And you have 2 dragons. That's a miracle. That proves that you are a Targaryen. People will be more inclined to believe you than Cersei, who blew up the Sept of Baelor and killed hundreds of people. And the funny thing is, Dany knows this. This is exactly what she did when she went from Slaver City to Slaver City on her way to Meereen. But fine, fuck it. Intelligent plans? Those clearly do not belong in this show. Dany, somehow, some way, through some Herculean leap in logic that us mere mortals will never be able to comprehend, decided to sail her fleet and fly her pretty little size 2 ass down to Dragonstone, which is next to an island called Driftmark, the seat of House Valyrian. And that's all well and nice. Both islands, however, just so happen to sit in a bay. A bay that just so happens to share a port with a place that might be somewhat relevant to our story. A place called King's Landing. You might just have heard of it. It might be somewhat relevant to our story. It might be kinda, sorta, maybe important. Yeah, I don't know how Dany didn't see this coming. Or this. Oh wait! D&D made her fucking stupid!
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her, and they're just waiting for her to come back.
And the Golden Company has arrived in King's Landing, courtesy of the Greyjoy fleet. The balance has grown distressingly even.
Well, if she wasn't sleeping during the fucking War Council, maybe, just maybe, ladies and gents, boys and girls, children of the forest of all ages, she might have remembered. But hey, fucking details. I don't understand how the writers expected us to believe that Dany would not see this coming. And I'm not even talking about the fact that she was flying thousands of feet in the air on a clear day and could see for miles and miles and miles and miles in front of her. No. I'm not even talking about the fact that she should have sent scouts well in advance of her. No. Nothing that pedestrian. I'm talking about how Cersei controls the largest navy on this side of the Narrow Sea. Dany's stronghold of Dragonstone is literally visible from Cersei's torture chamber. Dany getting mad because she got ambushed, even though I wouldn't call it an ambush. How do you ambush somebody when you're already there? This is like the equivalent of jumping somebody's fence and getting mad when their dog bites you in your pretty little size 2 ass. Like, no shit, Sherlock. What did you expect to happen? For those of you not catching on, Dragonstone is in Blackwater Bay, which is the port of King's Landing. So Dany flying and sailing into enemy territory like it's no big deal is really, really stupid. But the stupidity does not end with just Dany. Cersei does not escape the stupidity. Because, oh boy, let me tell you, she's fucking stupid too. Let me make sure I understand what's going on here correctly. Cersei had enough foresight to have the Iron Fleet in Blackwater Bay waiting for Dany's return, but she didn't put anyone on Dragonstone? Like, really, how are there not a few hundred, if not 1,000 members of the Golden Company on Dragonstone ready to capture Dany, Tyrion, and Varys, then kill everyone else? A dragon won't do Dany any good when she walks into her throne room and suddenly there's a few dozen sellswords waiting to take her captive. Hell, that could have been really interesting. You could have had a conversation where Tyrion's like, whatever she's paying you, I'll pay double. And then the captain of the Golden Company, homeless Harry Strickland, he's like, well, the Golden Company never breaks a contract. And yet, that's not 100% accurate. In the book A Feast for Crows, the Golden Company breaks a contract with the Free City of Myr, despite a looming war, and many profits to be had from that, with Myr's neighboring cities, Lys and Tyrosh. This is actually quite a big deal because the Golden Company has never broken a contract before. And what are we told that the Golden Company is doing after they break their contract? Well, Tyrion learns from Illyrio that the Golden Company is marching to Volantis to join Daenerys Targaryen. When asked about why they would do that, considering the Golden Company was founded by Blackfyres, a bastard branch of House Targaryen, that sought to overthrow the Targaryens and put a Blackfyre on the throne, Illyrio says, black dragons or red dragons, a dragon is still a dragon. When Meleys the Monstrous died upon the Stepstones, it was the end of the male line of House Blackfyre. Some contracts are written in ink, some in blood. I say no more. You want your episode to have a twist? There you go. Cersei losing her entire army to Dany? Wow. That would be a twist. And it's one that makes sense and can be explained, and doesn't take a massive amount of Deus Ex Machina to conceive.
But Joker, how would Cersei stand a chance if Dany had the Golden Company, her army, the Northern Army, and a dragon?
Well, Cersei has wildfire and can hold the city hostage. In the books, more so than the show, even though she does use it in the show, Cersei is way more obsessed with wildfire. Sadly, that's not what we get in this episode. We get no Golden Company twist, nor do we get Dany being captured by the Golden Company, because they were smart enough to secure an enemy stronghold while it was abandoned. Instead, we get Euron's fleet taking out Dany's fleet, and Rhaegal being killed by an impossible shot. And this shot is impossible for a few reasons. But fuck it. Let's go over the ways that this is impossible. First, George R.R. Martin says it's impossible. Only one dragon in recorded history has been brought down in the air by a projectile, and that was a 1 in a million shot. A mature dragon in the air is virtually invincible. Second, the impossibility of landing one shot, let alone 3 shots, cannot be understated. The dragon is about the size of a personal plane at this point, which flies at a speed of about 460 miles per hour to 575 miles per hour, or 500 knots. You might be wondering how that's indicative of how fast a dragon flies, but there's a size versus mass versus momentum equation on how things fly, and so I'm going to go ahead and say that's probably about right. So you have a dragon flying at roughly 500 knots. The average speed of a cog is around 6 knots to maybe 12 or 13 knots. And honestly, the dragons might actually be faster than 500 knots due to a hot air balloon effect because they breathe fire. But we'll go ahead with the 460 to 570 miles per hour or 500 knots for the sake of argument. The monstrous size of these scorpions should make slight adjustments in leading shots as these dragons are coming into view nearly impossible. And what you would have to calculate to land these shots would be insanity. We're talking calculations like range to target, angle of fire, wind value, including strength and direction, and you probably have to do this several times depending on the range of the target. We're talking about ambient temperature, we're talking about barometric pressure, air humidity, and a little something called the curvature of the Earth. And these are simply the calculations you have to make when standing still, trying to hit another target that is standing still. Now add the fact that you're on a boat, which is moving, trying to hit a target that is also moving. These shots are fucking impossible. I have to imagine that this is why George said hitting a mature dragon in the air is virtually impossible, because the technology simply just does not exist. And dragon scales make really good armor. Meraxes, the dragon that was killed way back during Aegon's conquest, had to be hit through the eye by a scorpion bolt. That's why it was a 1 in a million shot. It was a miracle. But whatever, fine, they killed Rhaegal, and I guess we either get a couple of scenes with Ghost, or we kill a dragon. But anyways, at this point, I've skipped a couple of plot points, so let's go ahead, rewind a bit, and head to Winterfell.
We're family. The 4 of us. The last of the Starks.
I've never been a Stark.
It's always seemed like that. Like there was an impossible choice I had to make. Stark or Greyjoy.
Our father was more of a father to you than yours ever was.
He was.
And you betrayed him. Betrayed his memory.
I did.
You don't need to choose. You're a Greyjoy. And you're a Stark.
So back at Winterfell, just after the War Council meeting, Sansa and Arya pull Jon to the side. So, one, Jon's being kind of a hypocrite here, but fine, fuck it. Moving forward, we'll just apparently forget that he had this entire conversation about who your blood is doesn't make you who your identity is, but okay, fine, whatever. Second, in the books, there's a reoccurring joke. Don't tell Sansa anything. This, in fact, directly leads to Ned Stark's death. When Sansa tells the Queen that her father is planning on taking everybody back to Winterfell, and Sansa doesn't want to go back to Winterfell. She wants to marry the prince. So she goes to Queen Cersei, tells her of her father's plans, and this gets Ned Stark arrested before he can leave the city. And with Jon basically being a Ned clone, it looks like Sansa's big mouth may lead to Jon's death. So Jon explains to his sisters who he is. But not 5 seconds later, Sansa tells Tyrion.
Tyrion. What if there's someone else? Someone better?
And of course, the stupidity is only there to ensure that Dany will find out. This actually makes me question whether or not Jon is actually Rhaegar and Lyanna's son. In the books, like I said, there's a character by the name of Aegon, who comes along before Dany after hiring the Golden Company and invades Westeros, while Dany's still fucking off in Meereen. And it should be noted that Varys is very much Team Aegon. In fact, in the epilogue of A Dance with Dragons, we get this conversation between Kevin Lannister and Varys. Now, Kevin Lannister is sitting there dying because Varys just shot him with a crossbow, because Kevin Lannister was actually doing a really good job at reconciling the realm and putting things back together. And Varys needed chaos so that Aegon could take power. Varys tells Kevin about Aegon, and Kevin says, Aegon? He's dead. Aegon has been shaped for rule since before he could walk. He's been trained in arms as befits a knight to be. But that's not the end of his education. He reads and writes. He speaks several languages. He has studied history and law and poetry. A septa has instructed him on the mysteries of the faith, since he was old enough to understand them. He has lived with the fisher folk, worked with his hands, swum in the rivers, and mended nets and learned how to wash his own clothes at need. He can fish and cook and bind up a wound. He knows what it's like to be hungry, to be hunted, to be afraid. Tommen has been taught kingship is a right. Aegon knows that kingship is his duty, that a king must put his people first and live and rule for them.
He's temperate and measured.
What about my earlier proposal? They could rule together as king and queen.
She's too strong for him. She'd bend him to her will, as she already has.
So you can kind of see where I'm looking at the show, and I'm looking at the book, and I'm like, did they just combine Aegon with Jon? Because they got so far in the series and they realized, oh, shit, fuck, we need a Targaryen succession crisis right at the end of the series, but we don't have 2 Targaryens. And so they're like, just superimpose that plot on Jon because reasons. Because in the books, we don't know who Jon's mother is. There's actually a couple of choices of who Jon's mother could be, but that's an entire video in and of itself. The point is, it really does seem like they took Jon's plot and Aegon from the book's plot, combined them, and now we have some weird, random-ass Targaryen succession crisis that, like I said, has been shoehorned into the plot because they realized, oh shit, fuck, piss, we need this, god damn it, so just do something. And of course nobody will be intelligent about this because of course, drama. When you have 3 people who may be Targaryens, that kind of makes sense that there might be a crisis. When you only have 2 people and they could just get married, well, then it's stupid. It's really, really fucking stupid. And I know I keep harping on this, but the show keeps harping on this. And it's all just set up to set Jon against Dany. And that is fucking stupid. If you want to set Jon up against Dany, fine. Fair enough. Find a better way to do it. Anyways, all of this brings us to the King's Landing scene with Cersei. Both Dany and Cersei have come to this no man's land to discuss the terms of one another's surrender. This scene is just fucking stupid. So the setup of this is twofold. 1, Dany wants to try to be diplomatic, even though she doesn't give a fuck about being diplomatic at this point. She just wants it so that when she burns down King's Landing, everybody's like, well, you know what? She did give Cersei a chance to step down. She did try. I mean, yes, sure, there's thousands of people dead, burning, and dying in the streets, but you know what? Dany gave her a chance. It's Cersei's fault, really. I wonder whose conscience that's going to make feel better. Dany or the families of the people who will inevitably die when Dany rains down dragonfire. The second part of this meeting is because Cersei has somehow, some way, captured Missandei. Whatever, fine, fair, fuck it, whatever. Tyrion and Qyburn, both hands of their respective queens, try to parley with one another. This goes about as well as expected, with Tyrion quite possibly doing the only intelligent thing he's done in several seasons.
I beg you. If not for yourself, then for your child.
If in the next episode we don't get a scene of Euron going, hey, wait a minute, how did your little brother know that you were pregnant when you just told me? If we don't get that scene in the next episode, barring Euron dying before it could happen, which I don't see how they can't just pick up from where they left off, fuck that, and fuck this show. Anyways, diplomacy breaks down because of course it was going to, and neither queen is willing to yield, so war it is, and Missandei gets her head cut off. This is where things on Cersei's side get super stupid. 1. Why aren't the Lannister archers killing Tyrion? 2. Why aren't the Lannister archers and Scorpions killing Dany and friends? 3. Why aren't the Lannister archers and Scorpions trying to kill Drogon? 4. Why didn't Missandei, when Cersei asked, hey, you got any last words, instead of going, Dracarys? Why didn't she just grab Cersei and fall to her death? I mean, if you're gonna die, you might as well go out a hero. And realistically speaking, these queens just declared war on one another, at least officially. And Cersei, she could have just ended it right then and there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. A bunch of arrows, some scorpion bolts, and it's done as dinner. Sure, Cersei would have to deal with Jon, but Golden Company. Jon will either have to sue for peace or get killed. What I don't get is why Cersei would show mercy here. She blew up the Sept of Baelor, killing her daughter-in-law, the queen, and all the Tyrells, except for Olenna Tyrell, on top of destroying a religious monument. And here she decides, well, you know what? Maybe I'll stay my hand today. I'm feeling generous. She wasn't at war with the Tyrells at the time. They were her allies, and she blew them up anyways. The fuck? It's like, take the fucking shot, Cersei. It's just so fucking stupid. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and like always, stay frosty.